They mocked his weapon. They laughed at his plan. But in just 48 hours, his medieval bow silenced 7 German soldiers and stunned the entire unit. The mission, the mockery, and the last resort, April 17, 1944. Outskirts of Colombe-le-Deux-Églises, northeastern France. Wind crawls across the damp wheat fields, bending the stalks in long, shivering waves. Somewhere beyond the tree line, the distant howl of a German MG-42 cuts through the stillness like a saw against steel. Private Elias Turner, 24 years old, clutches the stock of his M1 Garand, though he already knows it's useless now. He can barely hear his own heartbeat under the ringing in his ears, the tremor of artillery pounding the valley behind him. Elias presses his back against a fallen oak trunk. His platoon, the 3rd Recon Unit, had walked straight into an ambush 3 hours earlier. Radio knocked out, 2 men killed, supplies scattered, and now German patrols were sweeping the forest in tight formations, hunting for survivors. He inhales slowly, mud and cordite, sweat and the iron bite of fear. That's when his hand brushes against the long, oil-wrapped case strapped to his pack, the thing everyone laughed at during training, the thing his sergeant called Turner's medieval madness. Inside it, a handcrafted yew longbow, modeled after 14th century English war bows, along with a dozen black-fletched arrows, a relic from another era, a joke to most. But right now, it's the only weapon he has left. The soldier who brought a bow to war, they called him the Archer. They called him Robin Hood. Most of all, they called him crazy. Elias Turner had been a hunter long before he was a soldier. He grew up in rural Pennsylvania, where bow hunting wasn't a hobby, it was survival. By age 15, he could strike a deer's heart from 40 yards in near darkness. At 17, he crafted his own longbow. At 20, he was competing in archery exhibitions across the state. When he enlisted in 1942, he packed the bow out of habit. To him, it was just another tool, a quiet one. But when his fellow soldiers caught sight of it at Camp Croft, the ridicule came fast. Trying to storm Normandy or Sherwood Forest? You planning to duel the Luftwaffe with that thing? Jesus, Turner, the Middle Ages called. They want their stick back. Elias didn't argue. He simply kept the bow, maintained it, and prayed he'd never need it. But war has a way of stripping men down to what they truly know, and what they truly are. The ambush that changed everything. At 0430 hours, the 3rd Recon Unit had set out to scout German supply routes feeding the Siegfried Line. Their task, confirm enemy vehicle movements and report locations of field depots. A simple mission, on paper. But by 0600, they were surrounded. A German forward patrol had intercepted them near a creek bed. The opening burst of gunfire shredded their ammunition packs. Elias watched his sergeant, Staff Sergeant Wilcox, fall before he could return fire. The forest erupted into chaos, soldiers scattering downhill, trees splintering under machine gun bursts, smoke grenades hissing against the rocks. Elias had fired nearly every clip in his belt before diving behind the fallen oak now shielding him. Now the Garand hangs empty in his hands. Footsteps approach, slow, methodical, deliberate. German voices whisper through the leaves. Zwei Mann, rechts herum. Bleib wachsam. Finden Sie ihn. They're less than 30 meters away. In the silence between their movements, Elias unwraps the longbow. His hands shake, from adrenaline, not fear. He strings it in one fluid motion, the practiced sweep of a man who has done this 10,000 times. The string hums softly, a sound no German will ever hear until it's far too late. He knocks an arrow. He breathes. He waits. The first kill, a soldier appears through the underbrush. Field gray uniform, helmet low, rifle raised. Elias tracks him the way a hunter tracks a stag. Shoulders loose, breath steady, mind empty. The arrow flies. There is no flash, no crack. Just a faint whisper, like air parting around a falling leaf. The German drops instantly, a muted gasp lost in the rustle of weeds. Elias freezes, listening for shouts, alarms, anything. But the forest remains silent. The patrol hasn't noticed. He melts deeper into the brush, crawling on elbows, bow clenched between his teeth. The forest is a labyrinth of roots and shadows, but he knows it intimately now. Every hollow, every slope that can hide his movements. He spots the second German near a birch tree, scanning the ridge. The man is alone, isolated, his attention fixed on the wrong direction. Elias draws again. Another whisper. Another body crumples. 2 kills. 40 minutes have passed since he last fired a gun. The hunt turns. By midday, the Germans realize their patrol is disappearing. Their formations tighten. Their officers bark orders. Elias can hear the frustration in their clipped German cadence. He circles them from the rear, always moving, always silent, always unseen. By hour 20, he has taken down 4 more, all with surgical precision. Arrows placed into lungs, throats, or the soft seam between helmet and collar. A machine impossible to detect. A ghost armed with an ancient weapon. But he's exhausted now. Hunger gnaws at him. The cold is settling in. And the Germans, furious and confused, begin sweeping in wider arcs. They're determined to find the sniper killing their men. They don't yet realize no rifle is being fired. As dusk falls, Elias takes cover beneath a pine ridge and hears something that changes everything. A fresh squad approaching. He's down to 1 arrow, 1 chance, 1 final shot in this deadly game. The last arrow, the turning point, and the 48-hour miracle. April 18th, 1944, 1942 hours, western tree line overlooking Colombe-les-Deux-Églises. The forest is sinking into dusk, the light thinning into a cold blue haze that crawls between the trees. Elias Turner crouches low behind a granite outcrop, the long bow resting across his knees. His fingertips are numb. His vision swims from exhaustion. He hasn't eaten in nearly a full day, and the adrenaline that carried him through the morning has burned away, leaving only quiet, razor-edged focus. In his quiver, there is only 1 arrow left, the last relic of his strange, desperate defiance. Below him, he hears boots crunching across the dead leaves. A new German squad, 6 men, moving in a slow, sweeping line. They're more disciplined than the earlier patrols. Helmets tight, rifles raised. The point man carries a flashlight, flicking its beam along the trees like a knife edge. Their voices rise through the dark. Ein Scharfschütze. Kann nicht weit sein. Achtet auf jede Bewegung. They think they're hunting a sniper. They still don't understand what's killing them. Elias presses his palm against the arrow shaft, feeling the familiar weight of yew and steel. He has trained for 20 years with this weapon, trained for moments where silence mattered more than brute force. But even he knows the mathematics of survival. 1 arrow against 6 rifles is impossible, unless he changes the rules. The shot that shouldn't have worked, he waits, still as stone, listening to each footstep, each shallow breath below. Then, a single German breaks formation, stepping toward the ridge to investigate a cluster of broken branches. He's isolated from the others, just far enough that a silent kill won't alert the squad. Elias rises a fraction of an inch. His bow creaks faintly, far too faint for a soldier focused on the shadows. He draws. Every muscle in his back locks into place. The string touches the corner of his mouth. The arrow rests along his knuckles. He releases. The arrow vanishes into the dark. Then, a soft grunt, a body dropping to its knees. The man collapses without a scream. Elias doesn't watch him fall. He's already moving. In a single motion, he snatches the fallen German's carabiner 98K, slides behind a birch trunk, and loads a fresh round. The weapon feels alien in his hands after a day of silent killing, but he doesn't hesitate. The second German turns to investigate. Elias fires once, a sharp, controlled shot. The forest erupts, shouts, muzzle flashes, bark exploding around him. He runs, weaving between trees, sliding down a slope slick with wet moss. He's not trying to disappear this time. He's drawing them out, forcing them into the open. 2 more Germans break cover, trying to flank him. He aims low, then high. 2 shots, 2 silhouettes dropping. That's 6 enemies in the last hour, counting the bow kill. 7 total in 48 hours. But the fight isn't over. 2 Germans remain from the squad, shouting frantically, firing blind into the tree line. Elias loads another round, ducks behind a collapsed log, and prepares to fire again. But then he freezes, because through the smoke and chaos, he hears American voices, reinforcements at the edge of death. "Turner! Turner! That you?" Elias' pulse stops cold. The voices are coming from the northern ridge, deeper in the forest, familiar, urgent, rough around the edges in a way only American infantry sounded after days in the field. It's the remainder of the 3rd Recon Unit, the survivors who escaped during the ambush. They've circled back with reinforcements from the 36th Infantry Division. The last 2 Germans turn toward the new sound, unaware of Elias shifting behind them. 3 shots ring out, fast, precise bursts from American rifles. The shadows collapse. The forest goes silent. A flashlight beam sweeps across Elias. He raises a hand to shield his eyes. "Jesus Christ," one soldier mutters, stepping closer. "It is him." Another approaches, helping Elias to his feet. "We thought you were gone, Turner." Elias is too exhausted to speak. Mud clings to his uniform. His hands tremble. His bow, now empty, hangs loosely from his shoulder. When the lieutenant of the rescue team arrives, he stares at the dead Germans scattered along the forest path. 7 men, all silent kills, the lieutenant asks quietly. A corporal nods. "Looks like a ghost did this." But the lieutenant notices the bow, a long, primitive yew longbow, a weapon from another century. He lifts it with disbelief. "You mean to tell me," he says slowly, "you killed 7 German soldiers with a medieval bow?" Elias doesn't smile, doesn't brag. He simply shrugs, voice hoarse. It was quieter than a rifle. The men stare at him, not laughing anymore, not mocking, just stunned. The crazy soldier with the medieval bow had done what no one else could. He had turned the forest into his hunting ground. He had outmaneuvered trained German patrols. He had survived 48 hours alone, behind enemy lines. And in doing so, he had saved the remnants of his unit by forcing German forces to divert search teams away from the surviving Americans. War doesn't decide heroes by conventional standards. Sometimes the battlefield crowns the most unlikely warriors. On April 18, 1944, the bow that everyone mocked became the weapon that kept one soldier alive and helped tilt the balance of a mission on the brink of disaster. Elias Turner never sought recognition, but history remembers him anyway. The man who brought a medieval weapon to the modern battlefield and proved that skill, silence, and resolve can turn even the simplest tool into a force of survival.